Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever in the world you may be today. Welcome to this SolarWinds Passportal webinar, Maximizing Technician Efficiency. Today, we're going to talk about how you improve efficiencies, maximize utilization, and drive growth in your business. I'm Dave Sobel. I am the Senior Director for MSP Evangelism here at SolarWinds. My role is to help make sure we're connecting you to the latest in educational information. You're getting all the information you need from us as an organization, as well as from around the industry. I spent a good portion of my career as an MSP myself, doing exactly what you do, delivering managed IT services here in the Washington, D.C. area. So I've been in your shoes, done a bunch of other work besides that, but that's the one important piece everyone likes to know about. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in on the content. First off, everyone's on mute. It's not that we don't like hearing from you, it's that we want to make sure you have a great experience with the audio. If you have a question, we do want to hear those questions. Go ahead and put them into the questions section in the GoToWebinar control panel. That's right there on the right-hand side. You can put in the question and we will be taking those as we go. We're going to try and make today's a little bit more of a discussion. So if you've got questions or things you want us to dig into, please speak up. Additionally, let us know if you're having any audio or video issues. We have been doing this long enough that we can generally fix any of those problems. Now, the number one question we always get, is this session being recorded? Yes, the session is being recorded, and we will make it available to you in a post-event email. This webinar is part of our MSP Institute series of education, where you can learn from MSP experts and leaders. We have a bunch of resources on our website at SolarWindsMSP.com. Click on resources and you can go right into the Institute. So let's dive in with today's speaker. He worked for 3 MSPs before founding his own and grew that business from himself to a staff of 22 and to over $4 million in revenue in 5 years. And he founded Passportal out of the need identified within his own organization. Part of the SolarWinds family, being acquired back in April, May of this year. So a new addition to the team. I'd like to introduce Mr. Colin Knox. Hey, Colin.
Hey, how's it going?
Really good. So let's talk a little bit today about technician efficiency. You want to tell us a little bit about how you got here in the journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me and a little bit about Passportal. So like Dave just shared, we were founded out of an MSP. That was back in 2011. And we've been channel only and focused on the success of MSPs ever since. Along that mission, we now have over 2,000 MSP partners that are using our products across 33 countries and see just over 200 new partners joining on with our platform every month. We were acquired just in April of this year by SolarWinds, and it's just really helping us to accelerate on our mission to help MSPs everywhere be more efficient and more secure. Along with some of the little tidbits about us, we are SOC 2 Type 1 certified. We understand that the data that gets entrusted into our platform is very sensitive and requires the utmost in security and protection. So we make sure that we do have that certification. And we are thoroughly security tested by Rapid7, who's one of the world's leading security testing organizations that does annual penetration testing of both our cloud infrastructure as well as our application itself. And beyond that, we're very humbled to be voted by a number of your MSP peers out there for various awards at a number of conferences, and winning things like Best in Innovation and Best in Security and even Best Revenue Generating Opportunities. So
Lots of great feedback from the community, and we're certainly happy to have you as part of it. So let's dive in a little bit. I think you say there's 5 big areas for us to focus on, right?
Yeah, so I think we'll break this down and we'll do some deep dives into each section. But when we look at areas that an MSP can find new efficiency gains, it really boils down to documentation and the knowledge that we're capturing and managing on behalf of our clients. An element of standardization, taking automation to the next level, and in more than just the typical areas, I guess, that everybody just has on the set it and forget it style. Some consolidation of solutions, which always a hot topic in this market when you see a lot of the M&A activity happening, both On the MSP side, where there's some tuck-in and roll-up acquisitions of MSPs out there, and then obviously on the solution vendor side, even when you look at SolarWinds acquiring Passportal. And then one that's often not talked about so much, but is kind of that dark horse out there, is some effort allocation, where you can find some strong gains in efficiency.
So that's a good way of breaking it down. Let's dive in on each one and go through some of the things that we can do to make gains there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we look at documentation, it's one of those things that really is a struggle. And as much as IT professionals and MSPs and IT providers know how critical it can be and important it is, so few of us still do it. And it leads to a whole bunch of missing client knowledge that just stays in the brain and the minds of the primary technician or one technician, and often leaves the company and walks out the door when that technician leaves the company as well. We have inconsistent documentation of people doing things in a non-standard manner, and just gathering whatever information they see or can find, or what have you, and not doing it with any rhyme or reason. And so there's an inconsistency across all of our clients about what is documented, how it's documented, and where it's kept. And that ultimately leads to a lot of wasted time and inefficiency in the business, because when we've got all these different systems all over the places and tools and places to store information, that means that our technicians are now hopping and jumping every which place and where they can to find whatever information they can. And when they find it, they've also got different sections and different pieces of information in different places, but sometimes it's kind of the same information, but we just don't know which one is the most accurate and up to date. So it really drives a lot of inefficiency and ineffectiveness in service delivery. And that also leads to a lot of inconsistency in service delivery. Because if we don't have a consistent shared set of knowledge across all of our clients and systems and for all of our technicians, then that level of service is really going to waver and be all over the place when it comes to which technician is servicing or helping out a client. And that becomes even more prevalent when somebody goes on vacation or isn't in the office and unavailable to be dealing with things.
And the earlier you get started on focusing on this, the bigger difference it makes. Because if you think about it, when you're a one or a two-man shop, it's easy to start putting in place some processes of discipline. But as you get to 3, 4, 5, that's when the problem really grows very, very quickly and spins out of control. And the costs are pretty significant, aren't they?
Well, it really is, right? If you start to set a process as you're bringing on new clients or doing changes, and you're documenting things as they're being configured and set up or brought on board, that really helps. But when you're trying to do this and start from scratch, when you already have 10, 20, 30 clients, you've got a whole backlog of stuff you need to be working on to help your business, while still dealing with all of the fires and issues that are coming up across those clients in real time and as time goes by.
Yep,
So
totally.
there's a lot of research out there that even with all this inefficiencies and time wasted, that shows that the average technician spends 30% of their day searching for information. And, Dave, I think back to when I was a technician, and this is absolutely true. I would take a call from a client because the person wasn't right in the office. They were maybe out in the field handling another issue. And I was looking everywhere trying to find out even just the password to get in, so I could start crawling the network and see what I could figure out about this system, trying to reach people on their phones and trying to just get information anywhere I could before I could even start doing my job. And it's kind of crazy that you think about 30%, and it sounds like a big number, but it just doesn't compute with a lot of people as to what that cost actually is to their business. And when you look at the average salary of a technician these days being $66,000 a year, and an hourly labor rate at $32 an hour, taking that 30% of their day searching for information, annually, it's costing us nearly $20,000 per employee, per technician, that we're paying them $20,000 to just look for information that should already be had in the organization. And so that's costing us a lot of time. And then when you look at that, this whole 624-ish hours a year that they're spending on that, that's also time that they don't have available anymore to be billing other clients or new clients or working on other projects and items that can be generating revenue for the business. And that's, coming up to $75,000 a year at an average billing rate of $120 an hour. So a little bit crazy that even for the very, very small, 1, 2 person shops, that they're seeing that kind of cost waste and opportunity lost. And then as you start getting to the other end of the spectrum of even a 10-person company, $200,000 a year that they're wasting spend on and missing out on almost $750,000 in revenue. Now, I remember when we were a 10-person MSP, if I could have added another $200,000 itself to the bottom line, would have been incredible for me, let alone looking at adding, 750 grand in additional revenue at that point.
Well, and
So
this is an average way of looking at it. If you think about it in one sense, sometimes you'll use your more expensive resources only certain times on certain kind of problems. And if they're spending a lot of their time looking for that documentation that the first level tech might have already known, that's a even more wasteful time.
exactly. And if you think about even the client experience side of this, you've got 30% of the time that they're not even able to be helping their customers. So that's this extra time waiting of they may have responded to the issue, but then your average time to resolution is just going to keep growing. And the clients recognize that it takes a long time for them to get something done in many cases. And that's not really good too either. So
So let's get a little bit of sense of from the audience here. You know, how are you doing on this? How confident do you feel that if your tech was out on vacation, your number one tech's out? How confident are you that the rest of the team has everything they need to support your clients?
yeah, and just really be effective in supporting them and not having to search everywhere or relearn everything, when they're trying to get work done. And,
You know,
I
I'm
go
not
ahead.
ashamed to admit it that at times I was not always that confident running in my MSP that we were completely ready for all of that, that we documented everything when somebody was on vacation or even when somebody was unavailable for a phone call. If they're doing one job and we don't want to pull them, can I get everything that I need? I'd be voting not really that confident.
No, exactly. Even before I had my MSP, working at other MSPs, I remember the almost dismissive approach that my president of the last MSP I worked at, saying that, oh, we have what we need and what we don't have we can find. But as a technician, I was the guy that was spinning my tires, looking foolish in front of the client and having them bear down on me waiting for a solution on things that had that primary technician just documented things and had it set out for me in advance, and maybe not even their fault, but the technician before them, it would have been so much easier.
Yep. Well, we got some confidence out there in the community, and 46% have said really not that confident, but 49% said they were pretty confident that they'd be that. I would always tell everybody you ought to try that sometime. You ought to do a test and make sure that you're backing that up.
But even with that, Dave, you look at it that half of the population of this webinar alone is saying that they're not that confident, and that shows you what level of an epidemic this time waste and poor documentation is. And there's better ways to do it and better ways to handle it. So hopefully as we delve deeper into this session, we can share some of that and give you some tidbits to take away, and help you find efficiency in other areas too that are maybe not as time intensive for implementation as grabbing documentation can be.
Yep.
So
So next up, let's talk a little bit about standardization. I know a lot of people talk about standardization from the fact that it does help make a solution provider business more profitable, but I think there's a lot more benefits to it as well.
well, yeah, I mean, you think about it, and it's what can you standardize? And there's an awful lot in an MSP's business you can standardize. And, going back to that documentation side of things, knowledge capture is the first area of standardization, right? Having a consistent method and template driven system of capturing all of the knowledge and documentation across your clients so that you are documenting all their applications and services in a similar way, getting the same details and configuration information on those, licensing information for applications and the assets and what they host and where they live and the passwords to gain access to it, and just having it all standardized there. And then again, bringing that into a centralized place so that they have a single source of truth. They're not jumping around to all these different systems, not sure what information is right, and just starting to do some guesswork anyways. So this standardization helps because it just streamlines where the technician is going. It streamlines their understanding and immediate comprehension of what they're entering. And it just helps manage the clients in a more consistent manner as well.
That'll make a big difference. And obviously, if you're moving towards that, making sure that you capture everything is important to move toward a fully standardized model.
Absolutely. And then the next kind of pillar on this is standardized stack and configurations. And this is one that's been talked about for a while and has disappeared a little bit from a main stage conversation, but it still is a thing that, as MSPs, we're inheriting a vast variety of configurations, a vast variety of technologies out there when we bring on new clients, because we're so eager to please them and so eager to just be accommodating, when in the end it ends up hurting us as a business and our profitability and even our own confidence in being able to support clients in some cases. And then it hurts our clients because they don't have that same experience level and reliability of their IT systems that they could otherwise have if they were on a standardized stack from the MSP, right? So you're looking at all of the things like your firewalls, your switches, the workstations, every endpoint solution that you're putting out there, so that these are all solutions that your technicians and your technical team can become the experts on. And they don't need to be, the jack of all trades. They can be the master of one specific technology vendor across all of your clients, so that at any point in time, if an issue comes up with access control or access rights on the firewall or something with even printers or backups or whatever, these guys know how to work that. They know how to configure it. They know all the ins and outs of that solution, and they're that much more effective.
And that definitely helps with onboarding. It helps with new customer acquisition. When you've done a lot to standardize, having sure that you have those standard configurations actually helps a great deal.
Oh yeah, like we took it so far in our MSP that all of the IP schemes across our clients were the same, and we knew where the printers lived. We knew like what IP segment they were in. We knew what the gateway address was for every single client. We were an MSP back in the heavy days of very, very heavy servers, but we knew what the file server IP address was, what the Exchange server IP address was, who the DNS servers were. There was no guesswork involved when we entered an environment because it was completely standardized. It was very familiar to us, right? You think about going into, one of those popular department stores. Well, they're all configured the same way. So you even think Costco, everything is generally in the exact same place, regardless of which Costco you walk into. It's set up the same way for familiarity and ease of access to the things you're looking to buy, to speed up your time in that store and your buying experience. So that comes through, and there's a lot of people that might come back and say, well, the investment to switch out the products in place, whether it's the firewalls or switches or what have you, but that's also a great opportunity to step into either a HaaS model where you can lease the equipment yourself on a monthly basis, have contractual obligations with the client, and be actually making more monthly revenue off of that, and still getting the benefit of the better standardized stack and your technician's ability to support it.
Yep, and customers are not going to fight you. People will often say like, "Oh, my customers would never do that," but they want your service to be as good as possible, and they want their network to run well. And if you standardize it and make that easy, they will absolutely do it.
Yeah, it's totally true. And again, a client's not necessarily going to jump up and say, yeah, sure, I'll pay you $30,000 to swap out all of this stuff. But, they may be willing to pay the regular monthly increase, and maybe that's only $1,000 more a month, but they get all this new equipment and it's best of breed technology and it's what your team is certified on. So that definitely helps. And then kind of that last pillar of standardization that we look at is, operating procedures and having standard operating procedures, so that, again, you're eliminating the guesswork for really your entire business and everything that they do. So being able to write up your operating procedure of how you onboard a technician and train them on the tools so that you can expedite getting your technicians that you're hiring up and running faster. Your client onboarding operating procedure, so that you're bringing clients on the same way, documenting everything the same way, and you've got a handheld staged procedure that gives your new client all that confidence that you guys know what you're doing and that you can transition this very comfortably and seamlessly for them. So taking it all the way through really eliminates the guesswork, eliminates the human error aspect when it comes to missing an application on a new workstation deployment or a system access right on a new user setup. If you follow that procedure, it's there. It makes your technicians go through things faster, and it also helps you keep track of time, because a lot of time with the operating procedure, you'll know how long something should take, and you can compare that to how long it's taking them and then find out maybe where you've got an issue inside the business.
Yeah, and those standard operating procedures, like a lot of that stuff is stuff that you can get from your vendors. You can actually start building off of their resources, or it's published information. You can work off of a lot of stuff. So if you don't have something now and think it's a big challenge, there's lots of resources to leverage.
Absolutely. And the peer community in the IT channel is huge. And there's a lot of people that have written these procedures already. They've got a base of them. Reach out, do some public posts. People will be happy to share and help you put these together so that you're not starting from scratch.
So let's talk a little bit about automation. How can we get efficiency by using automation?
I'm glad you asked, Dave.
You think we prepped this?
Well, you know what's funny is again, you go back to the amount of years that we've been in the space and running MSPs, and automation was a conversation 10 years ago even. And there was a big move towards automating as much as possible. And what's funny is that with all of these advanced remote monitoring and management tools we have today, that so many MSPs are still not automating the number of things that they can in their business, and they're still doing such manual effort to take care of their clients and do such menial tasks. And so, in our MSP, we went through the whole gamut of everything that we could automate and looked at things, right? And we started with, we built some initial application installation scripts. And once we had those and those were running well, then we took a look at our standard operating procedure for a workstation deployment and realized, hey, that's actually just a lot of application installs and some configuration stuff. So we automated the entire deployment by stitching together a lot of scripts for installs and configurations. The next thing we did is it took us, maybe we had it happen 2 or 3 times where a client's domain or SSL certificate didn't renew, and then there was an outage or an issue for the client. Well, to go into your registrar and just set up automated renewals for these things is so easy, and it's so helpful. And at the end of the day, if something renews and you go to invoice your client for it, and it was your domain renewal for a year, and they don't want to pay you the 10 or 20 bucks for that, that's a pretty soft little bit of a risk that you've taken on that, to then not set it to renew in the future. But it also eliminated the risk that something did stop working for that client and had your team spending hours resolving it and chasing things down. And then you look at the whole privileged password rotations. Almost every vertical these days has a compliancy requirement and a regulatory control, like a governing body over top of them that's watching and making sure that they're protecting the best interests of clients and investors and shareholders and just all the public and consumers and everything. That all of those have a requirement to adhere to, good password hygiene and security best practices of rotating credentials, especially those of the privileged nature, like what the MSPs manage. So you think about that, and then even when a technician turns over and leaves the job, or the MSP has to let them go, and now you're realizing that you have hundreds, maybe thousands of passwords that you need to be rotating across all of your clients, as well as all the underlying configurations and scheduled tasks and services that rely and use those passwords as a part of their own service as well. So finding solutions out there that automate that. And that's really one of the things that really started with the whole creation of Passportal to begin with. And then beyond that, any frequent tasks. So something that we did in our MSP is we had an automation champion who would sit down and watch all the technicians really for the course of a week and tabulate every time somebody performed a same task. And if we had something that was performed 5 times or more in a week, we would automate that. So that cumulatively, if we were shaving 10 seconds here, 20 seconds there, 5 minutes here, across all of our technicians and every week, we were getting time gains. And it was just becoming much easier to do. So that's really how we approached automation in our business. And that's what really drove to a lot of our own efficiencies as well, to take off the potential human error element and to ensure that things were done consistently and quickly without any kind of manual effort involved.
Yep, and I'm going to pull from one of the questions that I've seen here. So people are asking you, how do you get started on this? Well, these are 5 basic areas where you can start. And I always say, anytime you're thinking about getting an automation, the best way to start is just like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. If
Well,
you've got questions, go ahead and please remember to, we'll be answering them as we go. Go ahead and put them into the questions section right there on the GoToWebinar control panel. Colin and I will take them over the course of the conversation here.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the tools as we've looked at automation now. How do we look at pulling our tools together from a consolidation perspective?
Well, that's the thing. We've got so many disparate tools and functions and utilities that we need to use as an MSP. And for a long time, all of these were segregated. Now, over time, there's been some market consolidation and some of these tools have been brought together. But really, we've not seen across the entire board. And so it's leveraging things like integration. So it started out that we had service tickets that would link in with remote monitoring. So we no longer had to manually create a service ticket when an alert came up of something we had to deal with, right? And even auto closure of those tickets. And then when we were doing remote management, we could only go so far before we either had to roll a truck or then go into our remote control tool and find the machine and initiate a remote session and jump in and start working on it until eventually those two things came hand in hand and you could launch a remote session right from the remote management. And then you had solutions like Passportal and others in the market that really saw the joint and the natural connection of knowledge and IT documentation with password management and not having to jump into 2 different systems to get that overall knowledge set. Now, as integrations came and other things have happened in market consolidation, we've seen some groups come together in all of these, but overall, we don't have a full solution across the board. But what we do have is that if we can't find a solution, we can find an integration. And a lot of these companies and solutions and vendors out there have pre-built integrations across the gambit of all these solutions. Now, if they don't for some reason, or your particular solution doesn't integrate with another one of your particular products, chances are both of those companies have APIs and public APIs available that whether you do it or you outsource to a developer, you have the ability to create an intermediary integration where you can pull data from one and write data into the other. And that's something that we actually did for a long time. We were an unusual MSP in the fact that we used 2 very disparate and different RMM and PSA systems with really no integration because each of those companies also owned an opposing RMM and PSA system. So we actually built our own integrations in there until that ecosystem became open enough that they integrated themselves because we saw the value in it and we saw the necessity in driving those 2 bits together. And so this is something that can happen. And this is maybe one of the more advanced things. And some people may rather just wait until, a few of the big vendors just own a product in every category and stitch them all together. But overall, this is something that you can do. And there's even a lot of MSPs that are using integrated solutions, but not using the integrations in them and completely running them separately. So get the most out of your dollars you're spending for your solutions, leverage the integrations that they have, and let that help drive more efficiency so that there's less hopping between systems all the time.
Yep, and make sure you express interest to your vendors of what you want to integrate with what. Oftentimes they need to know to get that feedback in order to prioritize their own work. Ask questions about the APIs, not just do they have them, but what do they do. And as Colin mentioned, there's lots of opportunities to work with development organizations to do that integration yourself. It's oftentimes not nearly as complicated as you might think.
And it's absolutely correct too. Is on the vendor side, we may not necessarily see the inherent value in integrating with a particular solution or realize that a number of our customers or partners are using that solution. So we do need that feedback from the customer base and from you guys to let us know, hey, an integration with XYZ solution would be of big value to me so that we can then build that for you too, because we do have the development resources in houses on the vendor side to take care of that, whereas you may not have the skills in-house to be able to handle it. So
Exactly. So you mentioned a last area of effort allocation. How can we do better on using our people?
right. So it's about using our people right and finding ways that we can reduce reduce the need to contact our people, right? We're even starting to see now on public forums that MSPs are complaining about clients texting individual technicians, and then that's a problem because they're not following proper procedures. But it's the quick questions that they have, and maybe there's ways that we can solve that so they don't even need to text with a quick question, that they have an avenue to get the answer without it. So when we looked at effort allocation, the first thing as you're growing your MSP and your business is implementing a tier-based structure where you can have the appropriate skill set of a technician working on a suitable task based on their skill set. So you may need 2 or 3 level 3 people in order to keep up with the level of like the amount or flow of those complex high-end issues. And maybe you need, as your business is growing, 5 to 10 level 2s and then 10 to 20 level 1s, because the amount of and the flow of tickets at each level is different there. But what we were able to do is eliminate the need for our senior people to be working on very small, easy, mundane tasks that a very junior person could handle very easily. And then we eliminated all the tire spinning and issues and even accountability problems of a level 1 junior person overreaching and trying to deal with a level 3 ticket, maybe causing a bigger issue than it actually happened, or just, digging somewhere that they shouldn't be and dragging on an outage or an issue for a client that could have been remediated much faster. So this is one of those areas that it reduces. You have so many people in your organization with so many labor hours in a month. To have a junior person spending a huge number of labor hours troubleshooting complex issues, and a high systems administrator level 3 type person spending a lot of hours solving very little issue or very easy issues doesn't make a lot of sense, and we can better allocate those resources and utilize them.
This also gives people career paths, as you can move and you can move from one level to the next. This makes your organization a little bit more scalable, and you can have people stay with you longer as they move up the tiers.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we did in our organization. Is they saw a progressional path to growth in their career when they came in. And as we got a little bit bigger, we were hiring only junior level technicians, training them on our solution set, training them on our operating procedures, getting them maybe a little bit before they were too corrupted by their own means and manners, and then help them grow through our organization to do that stuff. So it really did help with retention, and then obviously gave a path of more loyal and better structured employees. So
exactly. So how else do we invest in them?
That is a very good segue. It's technician education. We're in IT. Things are always changing. New things are always coming upon us. They're always evolving. And we need to stay on top of that because we are the technology experts and advisors for our clients. And if we're not finding a way to get education for our technicians and making time for that to happen, then they're going to be less effective and less effective as time goes on. I mean, you look at the standardization. If you only deal with and support one firewall or UTM and one virtualization platform and one cloud management platform and whatever else that way, then that's fewer things your technicians need to be educated on, and they can zone in and really focus on that and certify themselves on that. And this helps. But again, there's very little motivation in some cases. Some people are very motivated to just self-improve and go through this, but there's little motivation, especially if there's costs that the technician has to bear. So we actually provided an education bursary in our company where we offered a $5,000 a year allowance for education and courses and training and whatnot. And it just helped motivate the people to go get those. It got them certified. It made us a differentiated organization as one of the most certified teams in the municipality that we dealt in. But beyond that, we had people that were coming in and just solving issues really quickly. They knew where to go, they knew how to work with it, and they knew what was wrong. And in the event that they didn't, their certification level and our certification overall as a company actually got us elevated, expedited access to the vendor support as well, because they didn't have to walk them through the very basic troubleshooting steps. They knew these were certified people and jumped them up to the higher level right away.
So Colin, what do you say to people that ask, what happens if I train everybody and I'm afraid they're going to leave me?
Well, there's a famous little meme going around that, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? You're going to have a very stale set of technicians that haven't advanced, aren't engaged, and aren't able to deliver the highest level of advisement and service to your clients, right?
Yep.
People are driven to be loyal to those that invest in them and they're engaged with. One of the leading causes of turnover is lack of employee engagement. So if you are motivating your staff, if you are training them, or if you are investing in them, it's easy for them to become engaged in your organization and want to do better and want to stay and want to grow with your business.
Makes a lot of
And
sense.
on the flip side, there's easy things to put in your employment agreement or in the policy around the education allowance that says, look, if you leave within 6 months of this, you're paying back the full amount off of your last pay. If you leave within a year of that, you're going to pay back half. If you leave within, after 2 years, that's fine. We got the benefit as a company out of that. But there are ways to be able to claw that back. And even that in itself, we always talk in the MSP space about being sticky with our clients, and an initial term was to get your hooks into clients. This is a way to be stickier with your employees as well, so that they do have that motivation. And, if they get, another dollar an hour offered to them somewhere else, they are going to think about the fact that you've invested in them. Maybe there is risk in them having to pay you back for something. So that all does help with retention.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. But we can also help things by working with our clients too.
You bet. So, client education is the next gradual step there. As MSPs, so many MSPs, we have these flat rate contracts. We're not really charging by the hour. We're taking as many tickets and doing as much effort as required to support the client in any given month, and we get paid the same. So why don't we look at ways that we can reduce the amount of times they have to call us, or reduce the potential or risk of things going down, right? And one insurance area that we can invest in that even some clients are willing to pay for is training. So providing them security awareness training so that it's less likely they fall victim to a phishing attack and you're having to do data recoveries or, backup disaster recoveries from ransomware or somebody phishing out and emailing out on behalf of the client or taking data or whatever else that way. You're eliminating the need for that to become an incident. One thing we did at our MSP, we trained across the whole gambit of core solutions and tools that our clients used. Microsoft Office is a huge one, Office 365, Google Apps, overall Windows and Mac OS, so that our users were as advised and educated as possible on how to get the most out of those systems, the shortcuts, how to use them, and everything else, so that we got less of those how-to questions. Right? It became one of those things that was also a differentiator, that we were educating our clients, we were engaging with them, and they saw us as a true partner in helping them level up their own IT intuition or aptitude. So that helped. And the other thing we did on this to help us kind of double click into things was we would analyze our tickets month over month to see which users and which systems were causing the most tickets. What categories were they? What subcategories? Was it a particular line of business application that was having issues for them? And if it was more usage based, we would set up targeted training for those users or that client on those systems. We would work with the line of business application vendor, have them come in, coordinate a training session so that we could eliminate the need for us to be providing support on those because they could handle it themselves.
Well, this is a big area because we know the number one issue for breaches ultimately is people. So you can actually reduce your own ticket load by investing in teaching your customers how to do better. And additionally, you're adding a lot of value by making people more productive if you work on helping them understand the solutions they've got and doing a better job there. So this is one of those areas where you can make a big difference in your customer's business by investing here, as well as reducing your own workload.
Absolutely. And then, looking at that, reducing your own workload, we have this whole element of client self-service, right? We're living in a day and age where the millennial workforce is, becoming the more populated part of the workforce, and it's taking over. And this is a group of people that are used to being able to search for things themselves, find answers themselves, take care of things themselves, and they have a high aptitude for technology. So as an MSP, something we can do is start to create consistent, generalized knowledge base articles that teach or step our clients through and our users through how to connect my new mobile device to Office 365 and how to install this application or how to go through and troubleshoot whatever else, right? Simple troubleshooting steps knowledge base so that they've gone through and checked their network connectivity and checked that the lights are flashing and done these things before they call you guys for support. They have rebooted their computer. So being able to create a set of knowledge base articles that your clients can search through and read through and understand and see that there is a way for them to help themselves. And
Yep,
then
and
look at
you can get a lot. You can get a lot of benefits out of this. I mean, I always laugh. Even in my home life, I still do tech support for my own family, and my wife has always learned that the first thing she says is, "Here's the problem," and yes, I have already rebooted.
yeah.
So you get some of by investing in both education and in self-service, you can actually make sure that some of the basic stuff gets done for you.
Exactly. Now, there are some of those things like password resets where if somebody can't remember their password, obviously they can't do a whole heck of a lot. And so that's something too where you can look to offload that to them to manage, right? And I'm not saying that you give a point of contact at the client, access to Active Directory necessarily to go in and be doing things, but there are self-service password reset solutions out there that can alleviate that massive 20-ish% of your service ticket load by just offloading that and having them being able to self-service their own password resets, whether that's through, Office 365, whether that's through another third-party solution, and being able to take that and have them manage that through. And the other thing is you get an inherent security advantage to that because all these people that are phoning in for password resets and asking you to set them a new password, you as the MSP and the technicians have no way to verify who it is that's calling in. They may know the name of an executive and they may sound like somebody, but I don't know for sure that it's them. I can't tell who it is. So there's no real way to verify that, yet we still change the password anyways and give it to the person over the phone. This really eliminates that. And also it's just a lot faster than connecting into the client remotely, going into Active Directory, searching out their user, trying to reset a password, reading it to them 5 times over the phone because of the complexity requirements. These are all things that you can offload and have handled for you. That really drives a better client experience and more efficiency within your tech team by just offloading that.
So we've clearly given a bunch of specific ideas for people. I mean, and I'm going to encourage everybody, if you've got questions, we'll be doing some Q&A here in a moment. But we've covered 5 big areas for efficiency gains. We talked a lot about documentation. We talked about ways you can move on standardization. We've talked about how to use automation to gain additional efficiency, how consolidation around tools makes a difference, and additionally, how effort allocation works. So with that, we want to make sure that Colin, you want to talk a little bit about some of the specific solution, just for a moment or two around the Passportal and Documentation Manager product?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of these things are really where Passportal and Documentation Manager came from. And they're a lot of the areas that we can play in to help drive better success for the MSPs, right? So you have the documentation side with standardization and knowledge capture and standard operating procedures and leveraging into that standardization. We deliver automation by handling all of those privileged password rotations and updating the underlying dependent configurations for them of any services or scheduled tasks. So whether that's a regular ongoing frequency change that happens all the time, or if it's that, oh no, immediate incident management, a technician just quit their job and walked out the door, needing to change those on demand. So all those areas, and then down into the self-service. We've got with the documentation manager the way to create knowledge base articles, the way to publicize those and share those out to your clients. We've got a self-service password reset solution. So there's a lot of ways that we can drive this through for your MSP and greater security, greater efficiency, and really just bring all that knowledge closer to your technicians to help them really be more effective in supporting your clients. And then when it comes to consolidation, we integrate across the board with a number of the PSA solutions, RMM solutions, network monitoring. And then with our automation and cross-browser stuff, we're also driving for faster logins and authentications to other solutions instead of having to look up a long, unique, complex password and hunt and peck to type that in.
And we've got a special opportunity for those that are N-central and RMM customers. If you're interested in taking a look, you can use it for free all the way through August 31st. If you're interested in this, just go ahead and type contact in the Q&A panel, and we'll have someone follow up and get started. So while we're doing that, Colin, I've got a question specifically in here. Can clients store and manage non-system and website passwords with Passportal rather than separate password managers for each user?
Absolutely. So a big part of our platform is actually the resale aspect. So you can rebrand and deliver your complete own branded password management as a service offering to your clients. And that's with your logo, your colors, and they can store any kind of password in there. And that gives a branded web portal where every user has a personal password vault. The entire client has a shared company vault so that they can share passwords internally. And that also allows you as an MSP to be able to collaborate and selectively share credentials back and forth, whether you have a co-managed IT scenario, whether they need to share a credential with you or you need one time to share it with them, all under a secured platform that audits all of those interactions and touches. That also drives down into the browser extensions. So across all the major browsers of Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and any Chromium browser like Opera, your logo, your brand is front and center with those users as they log into every website and application that they're using, and then also through down to the mobile device.
So I got a question here around documentation. Can you do that as well with sharing documentation with a customer for collaboration?
So right now we have the ability to publicly share information or to a select list of people. Very soon though, it is coming where you can collaborate on and share full sets of documentation to an authenticated user, much like you can with the password side. So that is coming soon.
Gotcha. Well, keep those questions coming, everyone. Put them into the questions section there of the GoToWebinar control panel. Additionally, if you're interested in taking advantage of this summer promotion, go ahead and put contact into the questions and answers panel so that we can get you the opportunity to use the product for free until August 31st. Additionally, if you're interested in a demo, there's a link right there in the chat where you can go ahead and sign up for a demo of the product. We make sure that a time available that is best for you so that you can get that personalized demo opportunity and get hands-on with the product there. So either if you're an existing RMM or N-central customer, if you want to sign up today, you can use it free through August 31st by putting in contact. Colin, one of the areas that people are always looking for is ways of leveraging that standardization. So we talked a little bit there, but one of the things that I wanted to highlight for everybody was the opportunity to get access to all of the configurations and training that we have within the MSP Institute. You can go to SolarWindsMSP.com, you can click on resources, and we've got a number of different pieces around operating procedures as well as a real deep dive in that automation. For you, what kind of investment did it take to get those operating procedures rolling in your MSP?
There wasn't necessarily at that point in time a lot of pre-written procedures. We took some. I mean, there's ITIL standards for certain incidents and incident management. But we started somewhere, right? We just started doing some of them, and we understood that they were living documents and that they were going to evolve, and we needed to continue to perfect them. The beauty nowadays is you can reach out and there's libraries of these available for purchase. There's a number of your peers that would be more than happy to share a number of them. The investment isn't that hard, but you just got to start somewhere and start documenting them. Even if that's when you're doing your first or your next workstation deployment or new user setup for a particular client, document it as you go and pay attention to every step that you're going through and create that as a document in an operating procedure. And even if you get tickets back for that user or workstation saying that something was missed, obviously solve that ticket, but then update the operating procedure that was missed so that that's there and that it wouldn't get missed again. So it is a living thing and it is a gradual process in many cases to get this stuff up to snuff. but it is something that doesn't take a lot of upfront investment many times to get going.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to leave it open here for any last minute questions. I think we've making our way through it. We appreciate everybody's attention. Remember, again, if you're interested in getting hands-on with it, sign up with a demo using the link that's available within chat. Or if you're interested in us following up directly so you can take advantage of this offer and get one using it free all the way through August 31st, go ahead and put contact there into the Q&A panel. Colin, we've really appreciated your time and discussion. This has been lively today, and we hope everyone has gotten a lot of value out of this.
Yeah, no, I thank everybody for attending, and thanks for the chat today, Dave. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. It's been great to have everyone. Thank you for attending this SolarWinds Passportal webinar. We look forward to the next one. Go ahead and look on our schedule on SolarWindsMSP.com. You can find out upcoming webinars and events, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.